Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We're learning Mishna Beitza, Parak Gimel, Chapter 3, Mishnah Aleph, Mishnah 1. Ein tzadin dogim min habibarin b'yamtiv. One cannot catch fish, or literally translated, one cannot trap fish from a pond on Yontif. Now, they had these ponds where they used to raise fish. And then they would, send out a net and, scoop them up, probably, right? That's how they probably did it. Okay, so we say that even though on Yontif we know you can do malachas, you could do things that are typically forbidden on Shabbos, you can do on Yontif for food preparations, it doesn't apply to all malachas. It doesn't apply to all of the malachas of Shabbos that may have connection to food preparation. And one of the malachas that you cannot do is tzad, which means trapping. And there's a number of reasons of how to explain why you cannot trap on Yontif, why it doesn't fall under the category of food preparation. One explanation is because typically trapping is done on large amounts, meaning it's typically done on an amount more than you would need for a meal. Others explain that it's because it's in a similar explanation that it's typically not done right before the meal. It's typically done pretty much in a substantial amount of time before the actual meal preparation. That would be another reason why it wouldn't be permitted to be done on Yontif. Another explanation is the fact that because it could be done before Yontif. Right? There's no difference between trapping it on Yontif or before Yontif. The food is going to be the same, or at least in certain cases they're going to be the same. And therefore, or at least for trapping, it is the same. You don't typically trap it right before you don't typically go trapping right before you eat it. So therefore, because of the fact that it could have been done before Yontif, you can't do it on Yontif. I'm just giving some of the reasons that are given why trapping is not permitted on Yontif, even for food preparation. So therefore, the Mishnah says you cannot trap fish from a pond on Yontif. They nice with namazonis. Nor can you put food, nor can you feed them. Why? You can't feed them. You don't feed them because basically the explanation given is because the fish are typically able to find food for themselves even without you adding the food. Since they can find what to eat on their own in the pond, the explanation brought down here from the Bartanura, therefore you cannot feed them. Now, if you're talking about maybe your fish in an aquarium, right? That may be a different story. But here you're talking about they're in a pond, and again, even if my understanding is they are ponds made for raising the fish, but again, it's a pond, and therefore they're able to take care of themselves. And for you then to go feeding them would be considered unnecessary exertion, be considered tircha. So therefore, we say you can't trap the fish on Yontif, nor can you feed them. However, you can catch a chaya, which means a non-domesticated animal, or birds from bibrin. Bibrin, in this case, would be called a corral, where you keep these animals there to reproduce and to make animals that you should be, and to have animals that eventually you should be able to slaughter. So we say that if you need to trap these kinds of animals from the corral on Yontif, we say that you could. The noisim lefnei mezainis, and you can put feed in front of them. Now, the second part where it says you can feed them is because these animals cannot fend for themselves. Within the corral, they must have your food in order to be able to be fed. So therefore, and they're your animals. So therefore, you can feed them. And we say you can trap them from the ponds. Why can we trap them? So let me explain to you how they explain it down here. The malacha of trapping is defined as catching a free animal, meaning one that is not already trapped. It therefore does not apply to animals or birds that are already trapped in an enclosure. Meaning you can't do the malacha of tzad on Yontif, as we said before. The reason why the Mishna is saying that practically speaking, you could trap the animals that are in the corral, the deer you have in the corral, the chickens you have in the coop, whatever it may be. Those you wouldn't, if you were to catch them, you wouldn't be doing the malacha of tzad because they're already considered trapped. They're not free, and therefore they're already considered trapped. So when you catch it to go in and slaughter it, You're not doing anything more to it, so you haven't performed the malacha of tzad. So the Mishna is saying you can do the tzad on the animals in the corral because the malacha of tzad doesn't apply there because they are, call it practically speaking, they are trapped already. The fish in the pond, though, are not called trapped because the fish in the pond always have these, they say here, a fish in a pond are not considered trapped because they can hide in cracks and crevices of the pond. So they all throw there. So even though they're in this pond, right, in a defined area, nonetheless, they always have a way of evading being trapped, and therefore they're not called trapped in the pond, and therefore you cannot do it on Yontif. Now, they also bring here from the Tanura, to be permitted for slaughter on Yontif, these animals also be designated before Yontif for slaughter. Otherwise, it would be considered muktzah, forbidden for use. And those animals in the pen, you have to designate them for shechting. Okay, you have to designate them for shechting before Yontif. Meaning before Yontif, you have to have a plan that you're going to be shechting them. If you don't have a plan to shecht them before Yontif, that means they came into Yontif muktzah. They were just animals. An animal is muktzah. Wasn't designated for the purposes of eating, and therefore it's a muktzah. You have to designate it for eating before Yontif. That's taking care of a muktzah problem. Now, the Mishnah concludes. Shimon ben Gamliel says, and the Bartanura says, Shimon ben Gamliel is not arguing on the Tanakama. He's explaining. He's coming to explain when we say that you could trap the chaya, the oif, you could trap these animals that are in the corral. Shimon ben Gamliel comes to qualify that. And he says, not all of these kinds of corrals are all the same. Zakal, this is the rule. If it is missing, meaning if it lacks trapping, it's forbidden. If it's not lacking trapping, if it doesn't lack trapping, it's permissible. That means you could have a situation where an animal can be enclosed in an area, right? And it's not like a fish that could hide in any crevices, but it's still not called trapped in the corral to allow you to go then and trap it yourself to be able to take it to slaughter. If it is already, so the point is like this, the explanation of what's called, so the Mishnah calls it, if it's mechusar tzeda, if it's lacking trapping, even in the corral, then if you trap it, you're doing the malach of tzad. If it's not lacking trapping, meaning it's already considered trapped in the corral, then you're going to be able to trap it because you're not doing anything. So but we mentioned that before. What exactly Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is adding, it's not just about being in an enclosed area. It has to be that it's not lacking trapping. What does it mean to lack trapping? The answer is that if you can grab it, if you can reach out and grab it, meaning if you can reach out and grab it in one lunge, then it's called trapped beforehand. Meaning if it's that accessible, that all you need to do is give one lunge and trap it to get it, then already that's called the animal has been trapped before, and now your act of actually grabbing it is not called trapping, and you're allowed to do that. So imagine a chicken in a chicken coop, right? Chicken in a chicken coop, right? Maybe it depends how big the coop is, right? However, the point is that if the animal in this corral or in this pen or this chicken coop, if it's in such an area that all you got to do is bend over and grab it to catch it, then that's already called trapped from beforehand. But let's say you're talking about this corral, right? And this deer is running around the corral, right? And you're going to have a big job trying to catch that animal. You can't just lunge and get it. It's going to go ahead and run away from you. Then already, even though it's an enclosed area and you know where it is, it can't hide from you. At the end of the day, it can get away from you. And therefore, it's not called trapped, even though it's in the corral. And when you go and you trap it, like you take your lasso, right, and you run after it, right, exactly, and you catch it, that's called tzad. That's called doing the malacha, the act of tzad, and that would be forbidden. So Shimon Gamliel qualifies when we say the fish in the pond, they're not trapped. They could always hide in the crevices. So when you put down that net and you catch it, you've done the malacha, you've done the forbidden act of trapping. When we're talking about animals, larger animals, in a corral, now if you're talking about a cow, right? There's no big deal getting a cow. No big deal, right? They don't move around so much. So therefore, unless it's talking about a wild bull, right? But taking away a regular cow, it doesn't take much to grab hold of it and take it to slaughter. But you're talking about a bird, you're talking about a chaya, a non-domesticated animal, typically non-domesticated animal, like a deer. Those animals, so again, if they be in the kind of corral where all you got to do is just take one lunge and you can get it with one lunge, okay, fine. But if you can't, so if you can do it, just grab it. So it's already called trapped within the corral or within the coop or within the pen, wherever it may be. And therefore, when you grab it yourself, you're not doing an act of trapping. It's already considered trapped. However, if you can't just reach out and grab it, that means it's not yet trapped and you're catching it now. That is the act of trapping that will be forbidden to do on Yom Tov. Have a wonderful day.
Well, this is Yom Tov, not Shabbos.
Shabbos is something to talk about.